there any reason why I shouldn't just mention some of this stuff today? I thought just.
No, definitely.
Okay, so
About the open window.
just say, yeah, like, you know, it closes March 30th, you know, and hit these bullets real quick as a reminder.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, all right, I'll keep it close.
It'd be interesting to get.
Yeah, we talked yesterday. We had kind of, you know, for me, this warm. Took the time. Rest people.
All right, good morning, Chair Postman, members Garrett and Vollendroff, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thanks, Dustin. We'll convene the Liquor and Cannabis Board board meeting for March 15th, 2023. First item up is alcohol-related rulemaking. And we will hear from Daniel Jacobs, the Policy and Rules Coordinator on the alcohol side. There you are. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Chair Postman, members Garrett and Vollendroff, and members of the public. I'm here this morning presenting the CR 101 on Mass 13 permits and requesting the board's approval of this filing. The board agreed during its January 4th meeting to initiate this rule project after receiving a petition from the Washington Wine Institute on Mass 13 permits. The petition requested to make one of the COVID allowances permanent in rule. Mass 13 permits are issued to those under 21 to allow them to serve alcohol under circumstances that don't quite rise to the level of bartending. Importantly, Mass 13 permit holders cannot pour hard alcohol and are usually not allowed behind the bar, although there are some narrow exceptions. Currently, rules allow Mass 13 permit holders to pour beer and wine at the customer's table. And during the pandemic, an allowance was made for them to pour beer and wine away from the table to both facilitate social distancing and to help address the labor shortage. This allowance expired this past September. If approved today, there will be a public comment period until Monday, April 17th. As indicated in the tentative schedule I've included in the materials, proposed rules could be presented for approval in mid-June, which would set a public hearing at the end of July, and rules could be in effect by early September, assuming the CR 103 is approved. Based on this, I would ask for your approval to file this CR 101 today. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on this one from the board? No? Okay. Good job. Thank you. And with that, we'll entertain a motion to approve the CR 101 for Mass 13 permit privileges.
I move that we approve the CR 101 for Mass 13 permit privileges.
In a second.
And this is Jim. I second that.
Great. Then that's approved unanimously. Oh, thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Appreciate that. And we'll see you at the next step on that one.
Great. Thank you all so much.
We'll move to the cannabis side and Dr. Kathy Hoffman, our Policy and Rules Manager. There you are. Morning.
Good morning, Chair Postman, board members Garrett and Vollendroff. Pardon me. This morning, I'd like to ask for your approval to withdraw the CR 101 we filed last August concerning cannabis plant canopy. We discussed a bit of background on this this week in caucus and last week in caucus, but very briefly, our Enforcement and Education Division released a document in April of last year confirming our approach to measuring plant canopy. And following that release, concerns were raised by licensees and stakeholders about the protocol related to the treatment of pathways between rows of plants in the overall canopy measurement. We listened to those concerns, and in late June of the last year, Director Wax notified cannabis licensees that the protocol related to canopy enforcement would be paused while those conversations with our licensees and stakeholders continued. So following discussions, we entered into rule development, and that's when we filed the CR 101. We held two very robust stakeholder engagement sessions in October and November of last year, and we learned a lot from our participants. Themes ranged from deconstructing the tier system to conducting individual plant counts, but the majority of the feedback that we received asked that we just interpret the rule and apply it consistently. And after additional internal discussion, the project team concluded that further rule development wasn't indicated at this time based on stakeholder feedback, and that we would work on issuing an interpretive statement. So with that in mind, we'd like to withdraw the CR 101 at this time and issue an interpretive statement on or about April 7th of this year. So with that, I'd like to ask for your approval to withdraw this CR 101, and that's WSR 22-18058. And happy to answer any questions.
One quick, could you just remind me of what the timeline would be for the interpretive statement?
Well, we're developing the interpretive statement right now, and we plan on issuing it on or about April 7th.
Oh, April 7th. Okay.
Yes, of this year. Yes,
You said that. Yeah. Okay. And then that goes into effect immediately, right?
immediately.
Right. Okay.
Correct.
Which we believe is in time to get ahead of this year's growing, or at least planting season,
is-
correct?
That is
Yeah,
correct.
okay.
And we'll coordinate that messaging with enforcement. So more to
Great.
come there. And we notified stakeholders, or at least messaged stakeholders last week about this approach moving forward.
Great. Okay. Jim?
Chair Postman got to some of my questions, but I did have one quick question related to the stakeholder engagement. Can you give me an idea, Kathy, how many participants we had in those stakeholder meetings, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I believe in the first World Cafe, we had well over 100 participants.
Great.
I think there are a few less. I want to say somewhere in the range of 80 on the second World Cafe, but they were very well attended. You know, I want to share some of the attendees were LCB employees. In the first session, there were more LCB employees than not. But both sessions were well attended by our licensees and external stakeholders.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. And if there's no other questions, then I'll entertain a motion to withdraw the CR 101 for cannabis plant canopy.
This is Jim, and I make a motion that we withdraw the CR 101 for cannabis plant canopy.
And this is Ali, a second.
Great, then that's approved unanimously. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Hoffman. It is withdrawn. Somehow I always like when we withdraw 101s. I don't know what it is about that, other than I guess it shows we're listening and they're not just automatically going down that path. So great. So we are to the point in our agenda where we have general public comment. A couple of reminders. Everyone has 4 minutes to speak. We ask that you limit your comments to LCB business, refrain from personal attacks or going too far off topic into things unrelated to what we do here. Like if a speaker wanders too far, I will try to guide you back. For everyone else, please be respectful to the speakers and everyone who's present, whether virtual or in person. Don't disrupt the meeting or anybody who is speaking. And if we have disruptions, we'll pause the public comment in the meeting until we're able to stop them. So as a reminder, everything, it's all being recorded, be available online later. We don't have anybody in the room signed up to speak today, only online. But when we call you online, it'll just take a second for Dustin to give you the right switches there. So be patient, and we will as well for you to be ready to go. When we call your name and you're able to join, just tell us your name. You'll have 4 minutes. When you have 30 seconds left, Dustin will remind you of 30 seconds. And then at 4 minutes, we're really going to ask you just to finish right there. So with that said, the first person we have signed up is Sammy Saad.
Good morning, Chair. This is Dustin. We do have about 4 people registered to speak. Only one of them is online today, so if we can move to Jim McCrae, we can get started.
Okay. Jim McCrae.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Happy Ides of March. I wanted to do something that's aligns nicely with today. First of all, I want to thank you, Chair Postman, for responding to my inquiry and my concern that I expressed 2 weeks ago at the board meeting regarding the lack of response that I had received from the board on my inquiries regarding what I believe to be a case of corruption regarding Director Garza. One of the traditions in the Ides of March is that it was a time in Rome when traditionally where debts were settled, and I have a debt in this one. I want to apologize, first of all, to Director Garza for calling out corruption, specifically as it related to what appeared to be questionable inflation of salary when he brought his ex-boss back from the Department of Licensing for a 6-month stint near the end of 2018. As you pointed out, when we looked into it a couple of weeks ago, the state OFM salary database for state employees is not just salary. In the case of the individual in question, it included a bunch of unused vacation and holiday time. So the number was inflated. And so one of the core pieces, well, the core piece of data that I used to infer corruption was that salary number. The fact that it was not salary was wrong. So my apologies to Director Garza on that. I would welcome any counsel you can give me on how to correct the matter. I'm not trained as a reporter, but I do have high ethical standards, and objectivity is a big part of that. What I do intend to do is to put a disclaimer in the post in question, which is the last post that I have put on my blog. I've been basically waiting a response for a year and a half from the board. But I will put a disclaimer right up front in that post, basically outlining the facts as you outlined them to me, Chair Postman, and thank you again for doing that. I will also go back to Facebook because I announced the post on Facebook a couple years ago, year and a half ago. So I will dig that out of Facebook and I will share it with the world with the same disclaimer appended to the front of it. And that's basically my plans. My apologies again, Director Garza, and thank you for getting to the bottom of it. Chair Postman, I do appreciate that.
Thank you, and I really appreciate that. We, meaning everybody in society, doesn't give things second thoughts enough, so I appreciate that. Then keeping with the Ides of March, I'll tell you, I owe you an apology for not sending that to you a year ago at that point, or it was even longer than that, I think. But as relatively new here, it was just looked into it, didn't seem to have legs, and just passed on it. But clearly, given your response today, it tells me it would have been better to engage and let you know. So I'll work on that as well. I appreciate that very much, and I'm sure the director will as well. I think what you lay out there is a great way to make that clear on the record. That's great. So it's better Ides of March than it was for Caesar then, because things didn't work out as well for him. So thank you for that. Let me just check. Anybody join us, Dustin, on the list?
No, Chair. Okay.
All right. The last thing I want to do is just share a reminder about the social equity licensing program. The license applications are open. It closes on March 30th, so just about 2 weeks. You can go to our website, and it's really clear from the top how you can navigate to that to the specific social equity site if you have any questions. Couple of things here as reminders that I just want to share. If for applicants, you can only apply for social equity license once, and so that your name can only appear on one application. You can't be a partner with one person and then put another. So just you and do that. The programs for retail licenses only. Producer processor license are not available as part of this program. You cannot make changes to your business structure after you submit the application. So make sure it's correct before you do the submission. And then when the window closes on March 30th, we've hired a contractor who we've talked about here quite a bit, Ponder Diversity Group. They'll take over, they'll reach out with a link to create an account to submit the verification documentation that they're going to need to back up your application. After you apply, check your business licensing account to ensure the application was submitted and payment was made. Applications that are incomplete or have insufficient funds on March 30th will not be processed. So just a few reminders. Again, you can go to our social equity site. There's a great checklist there for things to do leading up to it, to the submission. There's some frequently asked questions that's been growing, and there's a lot of good information there as well. So I just encourage everybody in our last 2 weeks here to dig in there and do that. With that, any parting words from the board? Okay, great. Then we'll finish. And thank you, everybody. And we will adjourn the board meeting for March 15th, 2023. Have a great day, everybody.